friend is more important. You see, there's something about when you put somebody else before you. There's something special about that. That's the way Jesus lived his life. He put everybody else before him. You know how I know that? He said, I willingly lay down my life. Nobody made him. He chose to. For everybody. That was a decision he made. And you see today, there are decisions that you have to make to determine whether or not you're going to do everything you can do to help somebody to get in the presence of Jesus. Whatever it takes. It said they uncovered the roof. I wonder how they did that. Now, remember, this man was laying. I imagine he was probably laying on something like a gurney type cot thing, like you'd see the army. You watch them old army movies, and they got handles on both sides, and they run with them, somebody in the front, somebody in the back. But see, there was 4 people that brought him. Maybe it had handles on both sides. I don't know. But the point is, they had to physically carry him there, physically lift him on the roof, tear the roof open, and then lower him down in the house. Now, I'm going to tell you something. If I knew I was going to have to do that today, I'd have a whole lot of equipment I'd have to take to figure out how to get somebody, drop them right in somebody's living room. And imagine the people that were in the house when they seen all this going on. Do you think somebody there was mad? Well, you know, Peter could get pretty mad sometimes. Peter actually had just started following Jesus not long before this. When Jesus said, cast out your nets for a draught, and they said, we've been fishing all day long, there ain't nothing. And then nets was breaking, and then said Peter fell down on his knees as a sinful man. But you know what? Today we ought to make the decision and determination that whatever it takes, that we're going to get people to Jesus. That we're going to get people with needs to the Master who can answer those needs, who can fulfill those needs. Because He's the only one, right? It said, they let down the bed wherein the sick of the palsy lay. Verse 5, when Jesus saw their faith, He said unto the sick of the palsy. Now listen, I believe that Jesus saw faith in this young man too. Because nowhere that I read does this man say, y'all take me back home. You are not lifting me on this roof. You are not going to lower me in here. I'm not going to have no part of this. This man was going along with it. He said, look, I believe if you get me in His presence, I will be made different. Because it said, Jesus said He saw their faith. He saw their determination. He didn't see their give up. He saw their whatever it takes. And that's what they did. It said, when Jesus saw their faith, He said unto the sick of the palsy, son, thy sins be forgiven thee. Verse 6, but there were certain of the scribes sitting there, reasoning in their hearts, why doth this man speak blasphemies? Who can forgive sins but God only? And there he was, Son of God. And immediately when Jesus perceived in His spirit that they so reasoned within themselves, He said unto them, why reason these things within your hearts? Whether is it easier to say to the sick of the palsy, thy sins be forgiven thee, or to say, arise, take up thy bed, and walk? But that ye may know that the Son of Man hath power on earth to forgive sins. He saith unto the sick of the palsy, I say unto thee, arise, take up thy bed, and go thy way into thine house. And verse 12 says, immediately he rose, took up the bed, and went forth before them all, insomuch that they were all amazed and glorified God. No. Do you understand? Listen, do you understand this man? It said that he was a crippled man. He had to be carried there and carried back. Do you realize that there had to be, Jesus did a lot of things in that man's body with just what he spoke. And then that man jumped up and started walking. Huh? How about it over here, side? Y'all, what y'all think about it? Do you realize today that when people are in accidents and get injured and doctors do all they can do, but you still have to go through rehabilitation and you still have to go and you have to exercise and you have to sometimes you got to learn to walk again. This man jumped up, started carrying the bed to his house. Most people that had trouble just standing up and carrying their own self home. This man stood up and carried his bed and went back home. You know what? When Jesus is in the house, there ain't no doubt. This man picked his stuff up and he went home. And you know what? I like what it says over in the book of Luke. Luke chapter 5. Same story, same man. But I like what they said. In verse 25 it says, immediately he rose up before them, took up there that what on there he laid, and departed to his own house, glorifying God. That's the most important thing. You know, some people God will heal them and they won't ever thank him. 10 lepers. Only one came back. You know what that tells me? Only 10% of the people really give God glory when he's done something for them. Look here. It says in verse 26, when they were all amazed, and they glorified God and were filled with fear, saying, we have seen strange things today. When Jesus is in the house, things happen that nobody can explain in the natural. But it's real. The world calls it strange things. I call it the power of God. Who better to fix your body than the one who created it? For a man that could take dust, just like Todd was preaching on Wednesday night, he took red clay. And boy, we blessed with red clay around here, aren't we? Get it in your clothes, you never get it out. He took that clay and he formed it. And he breathed into it. And it became a living soul. And you think about the complexity of a human body today. That God could just sit there and start playing in the dirt. Y'all listen to me. Playing in the dirt and create you. It don't get no more dirty than dirt. God created man from the simplest thing on this earth, dirt. But it was his breath that made the difference.